Our next speaker is Ana Laura Deaconu. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. She will present on agroecology-based alternative food networks in Ecuador.
Hi. So today I'll be telling you the story of how agroecology-based alternative food networks may improve Ecuadorian farmers' diets while promoting food sovereignty and ecological regeneration. But first, I'd like to thank the farmers who invited me into their homes and were so welcoming and were really what made this research possible. So for those of you who don't know, Ecuador is right here in South America, and this is Imbabura province, which is our study site for this research. And for the Ecuadorian context, it's quite similar to other places around the world where you have certain communities where you have high prevalence of poverty. And Ecuador is quite similar to India and much of the rest of the world in that sustainable food faces multiple challenges. For example, there's the double burden of malnutrition, where you have children who are stunted and then become overweight or obese later on in their lives. You also have agricultural industrialization, wherein you have environmental degradation, you have pesticide poisoning, and of course you have economic dependence on agro-industry, which is not great for the farmers. And then in the food markets, you're really experiencing a change where increasingly there is a gap between the consumers and the producers, and this often puts farmers on the unfair side of the relationship. So, in response to these systemic problems, fortunately, there are farmers out there who have really taken a stand. And farmers in Ecuador have organized around agroecology as a social movement that is intended to respond to these systemic issues. So for the uninitiated, agroecology is essentially an organic production strategy that's based on increasing biodiversity on the farm. It combines ecological and ancestral knowledge to improve the health of the agricultural ecosystem, and it leads to long-term increases in productivity without external inputs such as pesticides or synthetic fertilizers. And in many contexts of agroecology, such as in Ecuador, farmers who participate in agroecology are organized around alternative food networks in which they are selling their products in specialized markets. They sell directly from farmer to consumer, and they form relationships of fair, dignified trade to sell their healthy organic products. So this appears to be a favorable option for farmers in terms of production and in terms of the economic climate, but what about nutrition, right? We don't know very much on direct impacts between this agroecology movement and dietary outcomes. So this is where we came in to try to figure this out. So first, we went in with some qualitative methods. We really spent a lot of time interviewing folks and living in their homes as part of an ethnographic process to really feel that we understood as much as we could the context in order to develop an appropriate cross-sectional study that the farmers also felt would be useful. And then I just recently went back to conduct focus group discussions just to see whether or not the farmers agree with the analysis that we performed and the results that we obtained. So in the cross-sectional survey, we compared production, diet, and socioeconomic variables between agroecological farmers and what we call conventional farmers, who are in fact their neighbors and are living in very similar conditions and ecological niche, distance to market, etc., but they are not involved in the agroecology movement actively. And so what we did is that we used a 24-hour recall on the dietary variables, and this allowed us to calculate a dietary diversity index based on 10 food groups, and of course this is associated with micronutrient sufficiency. But where we sort of branched out from what some 24-hour recalls do, first of all, this was quantitative, meaning that we did ask for the quantities consumed of each and every ingredient, but also we asked where they got the product from. So this allowed us to calculate the proportion of calories and nutrients according to the food source. Now, their sources of food were their own harvest from their own production or from wild harvest, the social economy, which refers to direct purchase from other farmers in their communities or to barter, and then market purchase from your sort of regular capitalist market economies. So we'll just see a few key findings from this, of which there are many more. But going back to this issue of productivity and production, we did find that agroecological farmers are consuming a greater diversity of products, are producing a greater diversity of products on their farms. And then among the agroecological farmers, they consider that they've participated in this movement on average for 4 years. And during that time, they report that they've been able to establish fair, dignified trade relationships, important friendships among producers and also with consumers. They have been able to share knowledge in these spaces, and importantly, they're bartering products and seeds. And doing so, they feel that these market spaces contribute to their food sovereignty, their control of their food system. As for the dietary outcomes, we do find that there's a difference in the dietary diversity score of approximately 1 food group between the agroecological farmers and their neighbors. Now, remember, we're talking about food groups, so we do believe that this is important, especially in this context where micronutrient deficiencies are such an issue. And remembering that farmers have only been involved in this movement on average for 4 years, and that this didn't have any initial intention to act on nutrition outcomes, we do think that it's possible that this could actually expand over time. But now let's look at where farmers are getting their food. Here we're seeing where agroecological farmers and conventional farmers are getting their calories. So we can see here on the left is that agroecological farmers are getting a little bit more of their calories from the social economy than their conventional neighbors, and they're getting quite a bit more from harvest than their conventional neighbors. The conventional farmers, on the other side, are purchasing a lot more of their calories. When we look at micronutrients, we see that this pattern is repeated. But let's see what happens when we compare calories to micronutrients. So here we're looking just at agroecological farmers. These are their calories, these are their micronutrients. So we'll see here, first of all, in calories, that they're getting a lot more of their calories from market purchase, which means that these tend to be more calorie-rich foods instead of nutrient-dense foods. On the other hand, they're getting more of their nutrients from the social economy and from harvest, which means that these are more nutrient-dense foods that they're getting from their own farms and from their social relationships. Looking the same exercise with conventional farmers, we see the exact same pattern is repeated. So what this means is that for both farmer groups in our study, the foods that they're buying at markets tend to be more calorie-rich, therefore less healthy foods, and the foods that they're getting through their social relationships and from their own farms tend to be more nutrient-rich, more healthy foods that they're obtaining. Also, we found that consumption from own harvest is positively associated with higher fiber, calcium, iron, thiamine, and possibly zinc. So agroecological farmers, they have higher production diversity, they have higher dietary diversity, they have more food from their own harvest and from the social economy, which give them healthier foods. So what's going on? Is it possible that there could be some kind of underlying socioeconomic reasons? Are they richer? Are they better educated? Well, we tested for this and we found no differences between these two groups in terms of our socioeconomic indicators, so we believe that that's not what's telling the story. So then, of course, we wonder, could they be getting more diverse diets from their production? Because, of course, they have more diversity in their production. We did a bit of a regression analysis, and we did find that production strategy did contribute to dietary diversity, but what's really driving this was just the fact of being part of the agroecology movement. So it appears that there's something else going on within the agroecology movement besides the actual production part of agroecology that is making agroecological farmers have stronger diets. So upon consulting in focus group discussions and speaking with locals, we believe that something else relates to the social and educational environment surrounding agroecological markets, wherein farmers are engaging in relationships and creating a culture that is concerned with food. But then there's the direction of causality. This is a cross-sectional study, right? So, maybe agroecological farmers were just different before they entered the movement. Being a cross-sectional study, we can't answer that question, but the farmers, they know their situation, so fortunately they can. For example, Paula, who says, before agroecology, I grew maybe 4 or 5 products. Now I think I have more like 45. And Maria, who says, I've changed my diet. With the agroecological market, I eat organic, I eat salads, vegetables, fruit. This is where I learned to eat healthy. And this story is repeated by many farmers. So in conclusion, we do believe from the farmers' experiences and from our quantitative methods that there is a good chance that agroecology-based alternative food networks are improving Ecuadorian farmers' diets while promoting food sovereignty and ecological regeneration. Thank you.